Okay, hi family and friends. Hope you're all doing well. Sandy here. Welcome to my kitchen. And today we are gonna do a really good classic cake from my recipe box. It is fig season at our house, and that means that we have lots and lots of delicious ripe figs from the tree. And so this time of year, I'm always trying to find something to do with figs. And for the last couple of years, I've been playing around with this chocolate fig cake, and I've got it down. So I consider it a classic. We're gonna make it today, and I've got everything we need here. We're gonna go through it, and then we're gonna have a yummy chocolate cake with a cream cheese icing at the end that we all can enjoy. And figs are plentiful in the markets. Not everybody has a fig tree in their backyard, obviously. But you can find them, and you know, in the fall is when their season is, and they are just delicious. There's all different kinds of figs. Any kind of fig will work with this cake. So let's get started. In my mixer here, I've got 2 sticks of room temperature butter and 1 cup of sugar. And I have mixed those together, creamed those together really nicely. In this small pot, I have a cup of diced figs in 1 cup of red wine. And I've heated that up over medium heat, brought it to a boil, and then turned it off. So it's still nice and hot. I just used a Cloudline Pinot. This is from Oregon. Any red wine that you like will work. I wouldn't have it be too powerful or overbearing for this. A nice Pinot, a Burgundy wine, a Merlot, something like that would be really great. If you want the wine to be a little bit more forward in the cake, of course you can use a stronger wine like a Cab, but I like the Pinot. And what we're gonna do, since you can see this is smoking a little bit, is I got a half a cup of chocolate chips. I'm gonna put that into the wine and let that melt, and I'm going to combine it with the figs and the wine, and that is going to go in the cake. So while we're doing the rest, we're going to let those chips melt in this wine, and this is going to give the cake such a really good chocolatey and delicious figgy flavor. So let's let those chips melt. They're melting already. To the sugar and butter, we're going to add 2 eggs. Pop those in there. And while I'm doing this, I am going to tell you that we are going to use for this, it's not a layer cake. We're going to use a springform pan, a 9-inch springform pan, and we're going to put the batter in there. And that pan is already greased and floured, and then floured again with some cocoa powder. So this is ready to accept our batter. And I've got the oven coming up to temperature to 350 degrees. And so that's getting ready so we can bake our cake. We need a teaspoon of vanilla, so we can put that in with the eggs and the butter and the sugar. And let's get that going. I've been scraping down the sides a little bit on that butter to make sure that the sugar and the butter were combined really good. And I'll probably scrape this down a couple times while we're making this batter, just to make sure that everything's combined. Sometimes in these mixers, you know, things get stuck in the crannies in the bottom, or get on top of your pulp here, your paddle, so they don't get incorporated as nicely as you want them to. For this cake, it's kind of important that everything gets incorporated really well. So the eggs with the sugar and the butter, we should cream that together really good until it gets light and fluffy. And let's see, so that was the vanilla. Alright, so we do have some dry ingredients to talk about. We have some cocoa. I have some really good cocoa powder that I got in France on a trip one time. Any kind of cocoa powder that you like will probably work for this recipe. So whatever you have, really in the supermarket any kind of a, you know, Hershey's and kind of your standard cocoa powders for baking will work well. So I'm going to scrape this down. You can see it still needs a little bit more mixing because it's looking not as smooth as I would like it to look at this point. So let's get that going. All right. And our chocolate is really looking good in here. It's pretty much dissolved. And it smells really good. Chocolate, red wine, figs. What more could you ask for? Now, if you don't like figs, you know, I bet you, I have not made this cake without the figs in here. I'm just using the chocolate and the wine. And, you know, you can substitute raisins maybe. Let them get nice and plump in the wine. Maybe some golden raisins would be nice if you like raisins. Dates. Anything in that kind of family would work really well for this cake, I think. So, you know, like anything, it's what you like. So, this is the starting point for you. My family loves this cake. My daughter loves this cake. My granddaughter loves this cake. There's nothing not to like. And it's great use for the figs from the garden. You can also cut up those figs in a 1 cup, you know, fill up a cup measure with them, chop them up and put them in your freezer and keep them for the winter time. And make this cake in the middle of the winter and it'll be just as good. So I do have some figs for that purpose in my freezer already. Alright, this is looking good. So nice and fluffy and well combined. Okay, so now let's start with some dry ingredients. Let's get some of that off here. Your fingers are your best friend when you're baking. Remember that. Nothing wrong with that, as long as your hands are clean, obviously. Okay, so in here I've got some baking soda, 1 teaspoon, and I've got the 2 tablespoons of the cocoa powder. So that is going to give it its chocolatey goodness along with the chocolate that's in here. So we've got our eggs, we've got our vanilla. Combine that. Baking soda, cocoa, we've got the flour, we've got 1 3/4 of a table, 1 3/4 cups of flour right here. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the flour and this fig and chocolate mixture a little bit at a time into this batter. So I'm going to pour a little bit of this in. I wish I could pour it the other way so you could see better, but maybe I'll try next time. And a little bit of the flour. So that everything has a chance to meld really nicely. Wow, that's looking pretty good. Second half of this flour in there. It's not that much, so it shouldn't splatter. And again, we still have some residual flour in here, so I'm gonna make sure I get it all into the pan. And let's try to do it this way. Whoa! The rest of that delicious chocolate and fig. Got a little bit of chips at the bottom that weren't completely melted. I'm sure they're nice and soft and they'll blend in really well. I'm not worried about that. And I guess if we had more time, I could have stirred them and mixed them a little bit better, but that's fine. All right. Let me drop my goodness out of this pot. And let's get that going again. I'll wipe my fingers off. All right. So that is all of the ingredients that go into this batter. And then what happens is we're going to pour it out into our springform pan. And we are going to bake this cake for 55 minutes at 350 degrees. And then we'll test it. And if the toothpick comes out clean, we know we're good. And yeah, and that's it. Now, the trick with this cake is that you're going to leave it in this springform pan when it comes out of the oven. You're going to put it on a rack and you're going to leave it there to cool for 2 hours. It's got to cool in the springform pan, which is an unusual thing to do when you bake a cake. Usually you kind of let it cool off for a little bit, you pop it out of the pan, then you put it on the rack without the pan and let it cool off that way. In this case, you're not going to do that. So this cake, because of the chocolate and the moisture in the batter, it's got to set up as it's cooling. So you got to leave it in the pan. So we are going to check our batter now. This is looking really good. Look at that. We'll do one scrape down to the sides because I see some flour here. We don't really need to overmix this at this point. Let's scrape on the bottom and make sure we've got everything up from there. Yep. That looks really good. Look at that. That batter looks like you could eat it off the spoon. But obviously we don't do that. Not anymore. Anyway. All right, one quick final whiz. And that batter is finished. So, just tip it here for you so you can take a look at the batter and see how it looks. Maybe I can even get it over to the camera for you, although it's probably going to be a mess. But let's give it a try. Beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna take it from here, put it in the springform pan, get it in the oven. I'm gonna bake it for 55 minutes, let it sit for that 2-hour period. And in the meantime, I'm gonna clean up my mixer here and you and I are gonna make the frosting that goes on this cake. So that's ready when the cake is ready for it. So we'll see you back here in a little bit. All right, family and friends, cake is in the oven. It's smelling really good in this kitchen. And I've got the mixer all cleaned up and ready to go to make the frosting. So the recipe calls for 8 ounces of mascarpone cheese, which is like an Italian cream cheese. And it's really, really good for this cake. But today I kind of want to change it a little bit. I'm going to use 8 ounces of regular Philadelphia brand cream cheese at room temperature because I want it to have a little bit more cheesier flavor, a little more tangy flavor than the mascarpone gives it, and because my grandchildren love regular cream cheese icing. So this will give them an extra treat This is at room temperature. It's just an 8-ounce block of regular fat cream cheese. I'm just going to cut it and get it all in there so that it just is easier to combine with the confectionery sugar. So I have 2.5 cups of regular confectionery sugar. You're going to mix this together and cream it together in the mixer here, so you don't need to strain it, sift it. The mixer will take care of getting any lumps out that you might have. And very simple recipe for this. I'm going to put some of this, get it started, and then put the rest so that we don't have poof sugar all over the place. So we're going to go low and slow on this just to get it started. And the other thing that we need is a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. So use your best vanilla that you have. I've been using Mexican vanilla lately. I really like the flavor of it. You can get it online, you can get it on Amazon. I also make my own vanilla. I've done that, and my vanilla is pretty good too. But that's a story for another day. So that's creaming nicely. Let's get the rest of this sugar in there. There we go. I'll just mix that all together on low, and then mix it together on low to make sure the sugar gets in there, and then we're going to bump it up to about medium so that it can get nice and creamy. And that's it. Then we're going to put this in a bowl. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to put it in the fridge until I'm ready to do the cake, frost the cake. And because that cake has to sit so long to cool before I can frost it, I don't want to leave this cream cheese mixture out. So I'm going to put it in the fridge. And then before I go to do the cake, I'll take it out a little bit before so that it becomes more room temperature and gets a little more malleable so that I can actually frost the cake. So you can see this is actually looking really good already. And because this is a single layer cake, it only takes the 8 ounces of cream cheese, and that'll do the whole cake. So you can see I've only mixed this a little bit already. And what a beautiful frosting that is. So I will finish this. I'll get it in a bowl. We'll wait for that cake to be done, and then I will come back and show you what the whole thing looks like at the end. You're gonna love this cake, I'm sure. So stay tuned for the finished product. We'll see you soon. All right, guys, here's the cake fresh out of the oven. That little crack is perfectly okay. Little crack, it's a crack, but toothpick comes out clean. And now it's gonna sit in this springform pan for 2 hours. And then we'll unmold it and get some frosting on it. Looks good and smells even better. So the cake is cooled for 2 hours, and as you can see, the cracks on the top have really closed up significantly, and the whole cake has really come together very nicely. Ready for some frosting. Okay, the cake is frosted, and I'm gonna put it in the fridge, and there's some frosting left over, so I think what I will do is give it another coat of frosting tomorrow, perhaps. We'll see how this looks in the morning. But what a gorgeous, gorgeous chocolate fig cake with cream cheese icing. Beautiful.